You know, the more I play through this game, the more I think about quests that men go through in life. As men, we must aspire for greatness, and we all have our stories through our hobbies, our work on ourselves, or that one time we threw that perfect bullseye at the dartboard without looking. Yeah, we sure do have some stories, but in terms of gaming lore, there is no such a quest more noble than helping an 80-year-old mage help to keep his daughter from marrying a filthy douchebag bard. Now, you may be wondering what my beef is with bards, but to be honest, I'm not entirely sure. All I know is I have no negative history with bards, but whenever I see one, I just want to punch him in his stupid, smug face. But the good news is when we left off, the Red Wings, under mysterious new commander, were trying to beat poor Tella to the punch by ordering a complete bombing run on Damcyan Castle to steal their crystal and probably do the continent a favor by ridding the world of yet another bard. Hey, sometimes overkill is underrated, what can I say? When we enter, they seem to have completely destroyed the castle, taken the crystal, and damn near killed everybody except the stupid bard. So, naturally, after witnessing the death of his daughter, Tella challenges the bard to a duel and spews out his best insults, including the immortal, "You spoony bard!" Now, I don't know if this is a translation error or if spoony means something different in the Japanese, so I like to think calling someone spoony is the Final Fantasy equivalent of calling that particular person a sucker of the proverbial rooster while engaging in coitus with someone else's mother. And naturally, like most bards, this dude is a complete pussy and needs the dying corpse of his fiancée to break up the fight. Apparently, this weak-ass douchemonger is the prince of this castle and never got around to telling anybody, especially this broad's father, that he was actually someone of political value. So not only is this bard a weak-ass coward, he's also a frickin' idiot. We find out that the new commander of the Red Wings is some guy named Golbez, and nobody seems to know anything about him. But I'm going to assume that he has some kick-ass armor. So anyway, because this bard is such a pansy-ass coward, his fiancée ended up taking a crossbow bolt for him and died after giving the appropriate exposition. And seeing that he was cheated out of the supreme justice of killing a bard in the name of bettering society, Tella swears revenge on Golbez and takes his rage out on Cecil and the party by leaving us to take care of Prince Edward, who cries so much that Rydia, a little kid who literally witnessed her entire village, friends, and family get toasted into compost, tells him to grow a sack of balls and to quit his bitching, which he doesn't really do. So now we're out a powerful mage and stuck with a bard with stats that are... Alright, well, just look at it. I'd expect nothing less from a spoony bard. And after witnessing the true death of his fiancée with the ceremony of the corpse blinking in and out of existence, we get a new ride in the form of a hovercraft to begin our quest for vengeance and to cure Rosa of her disease so Cecil can score himself some of that tangy poo nanny, if you know what I'm talking about. So now we hit the open road with Rydia, who's been leveled up appropriately, and a simp whose best weapon is a harp. And this is one of my beasts with the game. Up to this point in Final Fantasy games, you actually had a certain level of customization when it came to your party. You got to choose your character's specialties, be it a fighter, a monk, a red mage, but in Final Fantasy II, or 4 if you speak Japanese, they make those decisions for you, and your party sucks balls for the first part of the game. I guess it's really not that big of a deal, but one of the things I always enjoyed about the Final Fantasy series was being able to play around with combinations of parties and to make it conducive to your playing style. But not in this game, brother. The parties are made for you and you get no say. It's not a deal breaker for me. Like I said, I'm in this till the bitter end. It's just kind of a bummer. So we make it to the Antlion cave to get a fever-curing rock, and okay, I can't avoid this anymore. I have to talk about the music. I am really torn on this one because Nobuo Uematsu, I sincerely hope that I'm pronouncing that name correctly, is an absolutely brilliant composer. And his music for the Final Fantasy series has been nothing short of glorious. I mean, his music is so good that I literally have multiple MP3 backups to some of his soundtracks, including 6 and 7. But there's just something about the dungeon theme to this game. It's not bad at all. In fact, it's quite good. But the problem is when you combine how slowly Cecil walks around with a high encounter rate, with battles that can drag on forever, this music feels kind of like being locked in an elevator with this the only form of distraction. And we're also combining this with the fact that this is the third major dungeon of the game. The first one was a brown cave surrounded by a white mist. The second one was a brown cave surrounded with water. And the third one is a brown cave surrounded by accents of brown. But at least the treasure chests are a different color, so at least there's that. And the thing is, it can get kind of dull to look at. It makes everything blend together. Now, I know that I could turn off the music and play something different, but at the same time, in a strange way that almost feels blasphemous, if that makes sense. I don't know. It's just one of those things I have to grit my teeth because yes, I actually am invested in this game, and I'm legitimately curious to find out what happens next. And even though my party is balls right now, at least Rydia has leveled up enough to hold her own, and to her credit, there is a magical exploit she can use with the weapon she wields. If she's armed with an elemental staff, she can use it to freely cast whatever spell is attached to said staff, which does come in handy. And as much crap as I give Edward, his harps do come with status effects that can be useful, but the damage output is such garbage that I have to rely on Cecil to do the heavy lifting again. Plus, it's kinda hard to be excited to play as a character whose special move is to run away from battle and to hide while the actual characters with balls stick around to fight. So naturally, we have to do more level grinding, and we have to keep Edward from dying, because even though he may seem as useless as a pecker on the Pope, again, I gotta give the guy credit. His ability to sing is so terrible that it literally scrambles the brains of enemies and confuses them, thus forcing them to attack their allies instead of me. Or at least that's how I like to put it. So after endless amounts of appropriate grinding, we're finally ready to take on the Antlion. Now, according to Edward, this thing is supposed to be a peaceful insect who's totally cool with strangers coming to steal their fever-curing rocks, but because Edward is a bard, he's therefore wrong, and we get ourselves into a good old-fashioned boss battle, and yep, just look at that guy. That just looks like the epitome of peace, friendship, and love right there. Luckily, because of the leveling up we were forced to do, he's really not that much of a hassle. We make quick work of him and then start the journey of getting back to Cecil's Squeeze. The long, pain-in-the-ass journey. I guess if I had to pick a chief gripe with this game, it's not necessarily difficult. It's quite playable. The balancing seems to be fine if you're willing to put in the extra time to level everyone up, but the issue is that the encounter rates can be absolutely bonkers. You take a few steps, then find yourself in yet another random battle, and you have to get everyone leveled up as best as the dungeon will allow. Then you just kind of have to cut your way through to fight for money and items. Now, you can run away, but usually that involves losing money, and you kind of sort of need money in order to buy equipment so you can keep up with the future dungeons. So it ends up slowing everything down and almost feels like it arbitrarily extends the life of a game more than it has to. But I guess you really can't have everything. So we finally get to Rosa and do what I assume is chucking the rock at her face so she can boss bay Yas Queen her fever out of her own head. And we find out that Mr. Kick-Ass Armor Goblez is controlling the King of Baron to collect these crystals for the reasons that I can either assume are for ethereal domination or because he secretly wants to be Liberace. I mean, hey, it's Japan. Those guys get into some weird stuff. Anyway, they need to get to the Kingdom of Fabul to protect the air crystal, but the pathway to the kingdom is blocked by a massive pillar of ice. Rydia, who's the only black mage in the group, can't learn fire because Cecil burned down her entire village. So yeah, fire bad with this kid. But after 2 sentences of encouragement, she changes her mind. It's Final Fantasy. You don't question psychology in Final Fantasy, it's just not done. But before we can move forward with the story, Edward needs a little bit more time to wallow in his simpiness and gets attacked by a low-level monster and damn near shits himself. The ghost of his fiancée shows up out of nowhere and tells him to be brave, which I guess worked because apparently he played the ever-loving hell out of that harp so badly that he made the creature's head explode with his terrible musical abilities. So, good on you, Eddie. You're not a man now, but at least you're slightly more than a little bitch. So the morning after, Rosa now joins our party. She's a white wizard, so naturally that makes her a massive racist, and she has the ability to use white magic to heal people. And because there are nothing but whites in the party, she's all good. And I wish I was kidding when I say that if a leftist ever got a hold of this game, they will immediately cry racism over this little point. But hey, I don't think that'll ever happen. Their ability to play these kinds of games are about on par as their ability to use a bar of soap. So we make it to Mount Hobbs. Rydia finally gets in touch with her feminine pyromaniac side and we continue on our journey. And as much as I am a prick, I have to say, what comes next is pretty cool, I'm not gonna lie.